Welcome on in, everybody, here to auburnundercover.com. My name is Nathan King, joined here by Jason Caldwell. A nice cool morning here.
It feels good out here, it really does.
As we get into November. Feels good to be back home, Jason. You know, we've been on the road, obviously, as the team has for the last 4 weeks. A bye week was mixed in there, and Auburn comes back home now. They have 3 straight home games in November. Starting with a big one here today against Vanderbilt. And Jason, this game sort of goes to show that you never really know in the preseason. You know, you can circle some games, but you never really know which ones are going to help define your season. This one is one Auburn absolutely has to get. They've got an opportunity now because of the win at Kentucky to build up a little bit of a mini win streak here and try to get some momentum in the month of November.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, we talked about it kind of during the year. We thought the road games, Missouri, Kentucky, would be ones that kind of defined it. And you're like, you probably need to steal one of those. And they did, but for a different reason.
Right.
We thought you needed to steal one of those to potentially get to 7 or 8.
Right.
And that's where we could be, but we're not. We're at a position where you needed to steal one of those to give yourself a chance to get bowl eligibility later in the year. And obviously, that means you need this one. There's no question about it. And it's going to be this is going to be a grinded out football game, both sides of the ball for Auburn. You're going to have to grind this one out. That makes mistakes, very, very big on both sides. And so can you play clean football? They've managed to do that pretty well the last few weeks, and so can you do those things and continue to play clean football and find a way to get a win?
Yeah, and try to establish a bit of control in this game. We've talked about this week, Jarquez Hunter isn't going to go for nearly 300 yards against every opponent, but you do need to kind of lean toward that sort of game plan because Vanderbilt's going to do that. We've talked about this all week. Diego Pavia makes his return. He was here last November. He was the villain of that 31-10 upset for New Mexico State over Auburn. The November before that, they also beat Hugh Freeze at Liberty as a 24-point underdog when he was at New Mexico State. He has this team's full attention on defense. Talking to Eugene Asante this week, he was like, look, you got to balance the emotional side of things and make sure you're locked in the game plan. But this team hasn't forgotten, and I think they're excited to have an opportunity to go against him. But now with this Vanderbilt offense, he is just the engine that makes everything go for them.
He is. No, he's a guy that when you start talking about trying to defend, trying to make plays, and Hugh Freeze likened it to facing Navy. I almost feel like it's more of Army, to where it's you're in a shotgun, but it's almost a triple option shotgun. But it's not going to be triple option pitching. It's going to be triple option quarterback run, short throwing game. Tackling is going to be of major importance today. It's always important, but you think about this one. I think tackling first downs. First down defense to me is the key for this entire game, because if Vanderbilt gets you 2nd and 4 or 5 all day, then you're dead in the water.
Yeah, that's what they want to do.
That's it, and that's what they did to Alabama. Alabama scored almost 40 points and only ran 45 offensive plays.
Yeah.
So they moved the football when they had it. They just didn't have it very much. Thought it last week against Kentucky, that was the key for Auburn's defense, getting off the field, getting some 3 and outs. That's going to be big today, and I won't be surprised to see Auburn create some pressure and go, look, we're going to play tighter, force you to make plays, but you're going to have to do it in a way to where you can't let him outside. And that's where DeMarcus Riddick, Jalen McLeod may be the most important guys on the field today.
Yeah, the match, we've talked about it this week. The individual matchups in this game I think are really interesting. You've got the potential for DeMarcus Riddick to be a spy type guy. You look at Eli Stowers, he's a guy we talked about on the show this week, former Texas A&M quarterback, New Mexico State, like receiver / tight end. Now he's got almost 500 yards this season as a tight end for Vanderbilt, done a really good job. They are great in the red zone. This is something I was looking at the other day, Jason. Vanderbilt's great in the red zone. Auburn's red zone defense has kind of been an underrated story.
Yeah.
They're 15th nationally in red zone.
And really, Georgia was the one game that it was kind of the outlier. They've done a great job. That's it. The rest of the time, they've been really good.
Yep. Yeah, and so Auburn's defense, big opportunity here today. Like Jason was saying, I almost said New Mexico State. Vanderbilt is going to look to play ball control. You saw that with New Mexico State with Pavia at quarterback last year. The defensive players were telling us this week it's the same sort of idea with him. New Mexico State had the ball in that game for 39 minutes. Auburn only had 4 possessions in the second half. They were trying to make a comeback here at home in a disheartening game, and they just couldn't even get the ball. And so, like Jason was saying, getting off the field on 3rd down is going to be very important as well. Jason's special teams is something I'm really looking at in this game for a couple reasons. Number one, Hugh Freeze has said it's time to stop starting every possession at the 5-yard line.
Absolutely.
Going to potentially see more fair catches. They've had 4 different holding calls on kickoffs in SEC play, and then field goal kicking is going to be important again. They downgraded Alex McPherson yesterday to doubtful for this game. Towns Magoo was last in the SEC in field goal percentage. They've got to line him up some easy looks if he's going to be out there, because obviously he struggled a good bit this season.
Yeah, I think Alex, to me, it'll be if you get inside the 30, I still could see him being able to maybe do some really short field goal attempts.
Right.
I thought last week you saw 47. It really stretched everything he had just to try to get it there. So, a lot of it may depend on how he feels this morning, because he's still dealing with some of those issues, unfortunately. And so how you feel today may determine that one. But you're right, special teams, can you make a play? We've seen it in the past. There's been some special teams plays in this series, whether it be a block kick, a block punt. Auburn hasn't really gone after one like that in terms of block punt. The other one is you look at it, and Keontae Scott's a guy that's been a little banged up. If he's unable to go as a punt returner, what do you do for Auburn? Is it Malcolm Simmons and go, hey, let's see what that looks like? Then you start to talk about, potentially, just field the ball. And so there are lots of things surrounding special teams. You're right.
Yeah, and on the offensive side of the ball for Auburn, Jason mentioned it. This is the kind of game where you want to really limit the big mistakes. Vanderbilt is confident. They're plucky, and they've done a good job of holding on to the ball when they get it. This is not a team you want to give the ball away too early and give them extra opportunities. Should be a good one today, Jason. What are a couple keys you've got for Auburn?
You look at it, and I think Vanderbilt will say, hey, look, we can't let Jarquez Hunter do those things. So I think you're going to have some opportunities in the passing game, throw the ball down the field. And how much of those do you take versus, hey, let's keep giving it to Jarquez Hunter? I thought last week they did a good job of short passing game, getting, especially the first down throws, instead of trying to take the shot. You did the first down short passing game, got you 2nd and 4, 2nd and 3.
Yep.
See some of that again, I think. Hey, get those guys involved outside in one-on-ones, let them break a tackle and try to make a play that way instead of throwing it down the field. So that's one of the keys for me. And then, again, I think first downs. You always go to third downs, but third downs really dependent on what happens on first down a lot of times. First down defense and offense may be huge today.
Yeah, as we crank up the volume a little bit for the back half of our video, we'll bring in our recruiting reporter, Christian Clemente, as Auburn brings back their recruiting visitors for this game against Vanderbilt.
Yeah, Jason, it's as we're pretty much used to now, another big recruiting weekend. Got to start off probably with Joseph Mbachu, 4-star defensive lineman from Grayson. Really, really interesting player who literally started playing football for the first time ever this past spring. But you don't find guys who are 6'4", 6'5", 275 who move like Joseph Mbachu moves. So that's why he's become so touted, so many schools after him. We've said for a while that Auburn, when he was committed to Florida, we thought Auburn was the biggest competition. When he decommitted from Florida, we thought Auburn was the leader. Coming in this weekend, we think Auburn has a chance to potentially seal the deal.
Yeah.
He went to the basketball game last night. Malik Autry came over and went to the game with those guys as well, even though he's not on an OV. So huge to get him in this weekend for his second game this fall.
Yeah, no, I think it's big. You look at Mbachu, and I've kind of made the comparison. Reminds me a little bit of Prince Tate at Wannago Jr., except defensively, it's probably a little bit easier to make that transition to a defensive side of the ball because athleticism, strength, size, he's got all those tools. And so no question why he's become such a guy, even though he only plays a handful of plays a game for a really good high school team. I think you look at him now and you go, that guy, you add him to this defensive line group, and all of a sudden you start talking about, we saw it last year, wide receiver group, the best one in the country. You start talking about defensive line group, Auburn's defensive line group will be at the top, if not the top, if you were to add a guy like this.
Yeah, exactly. And Auburn might not be done there as well. We're going to see whether or not Justice Terry, the 5-star, shows up. He had said that he was planning to. He said even this week that he was planning to. Wasn't on the list, but that doesn't mean everything. The list is not always perfect. Guys don't register by the time the list is sent out, whatever. There's a lot of moving parts there. So it'll be a storyline to see if he shows up. Another one I want to see if he shows up is Jared Smith, the 5-star edge. South Carolina's been the big competition there, and South Carolina hosts Texas A&M today. Now, Jared Smith is on the list, but I still want to see him show up. I want to see him be here on campus. If he doesn't, it's not the end of the world, but that's just one I'm throwing out there. Jared Curtis, the 5-star quarterback from Nashville, he's expected to be in, along with a lot of 2027 quarterbacks as well, which is interesting.
Yeah, no, we've talked about it. You got to continue to recruit quarterbacks. You got to try to sign at least one elite guy every class, and that's the goal for Auburn. You got to go try to sign those guys. And obviously, Jared Curtis is a big timer. Was committed to Georgia, decommitted, back on the open market. Auburn has been there, kind of recruiting him from the get-go. And Ken Austin has some ties in Nashville, so that could be an impact on this one as well. But you're right. Whether it's Bobby Coleman, whoever it is, there's several 2027 guys that are on campus this weekend that'll be guys to watch for as well. So quarterback's always going to be a value spot when you start talking about recruiting.
Yeah, and then 2026 is, there's a bunch of a variety. There's Ernest Rankins, who got offered maybe a month or two ago, who's teammates with Sam Turner over at Southwest DeKalb. A couple of big defensive linemen from North Carolina coming in.
Yep.
I think it's Aiden and Andrew Harris. I think I remember that off the top of my head.
Jonah Winston, Jameis Winston's younger brother, wide receiver at Hoover, who's really kind of played a hybrid quarterback at times for them this year. Is a really talented guy. That's another guy to watch.
Him, Nayland Scott, who's been here a bunch, hybrid receiver / tight end as well. So an interesting group, a lot of good guys. Definitely going to load up Texas A&M game. I think will be huge. But this game has a lot of intriguing guys, and it'll get really intriguing, especially if Justice Terry shows up. So that's the one that we'll really be watching. Most of the commits expected in. I mentioned, I think on Thursday's show, I don't remember which show it was, that the St. Francis guys were a little up in the air because it was a morning game. They're not going to be here. The commits will be back for the Texas A&M game, to my knowledge. We'll see if some of the other guys that they're going after. We know Darion Smith, the Tennessee defensive line commit, will be in for his OB then. See if guys like Zion Ely, Jaira Edwards, see if they show up for that game as well, but they are not coming for this game. Just, it's hard to get down from Maryland to Atlanta, Atlanta to Auburn for an 11:45 kick when you play on a Friday night. So it's hard to pull that off on a Saturday. So, Jason, I think we'll probably wrap things up there.
We're good,
Appreciate everyone tuning in. We will catch you guys on the post-game pod after Auburn Vanderbilt.